In this interview with Rich Procita, an attorney who supports progressive Christian values, we bring out many aspects of Donald Trump's behavior that might be included in an impeachment action in the House. Yet, although many progressive Christians might be offended at many of his actions, his evangelical base is still strong. But perhaps there are some cracks in that support.
President Trump and the First Lady attending the funeral service for Reverend Billy Graham today in North Carolina. White evangelicals have been a crucial part of Trump's base, but there are signs of a split. Alex Marquardt is out front.
You, ladies and gentlemen, must get right with God.
Sunday morning in a small country church outside Nashville.
Revival will only come to the evangelical church in America when God awakens us to our need.
Pastor Greg Locke preaches to pews full of white, conservative, evangelical Christians. Most, he tells us, voted for Donald Trump.
I'm pretty proud of him. I voted for him. I'll vote for him again.
Trump's support among white evangelicals is falling, but the vast majority have stuck by him as he repeatedly tests the limits of Christian values amid allegations of misogyny, racism, adultery, and his support for accused child molester Roy Moore. To what extent do you think evangelicals are looking at the president and saying, all right, he might not be born again, but you know what, he's getting done exactly what we want to get done, so that's all we need?
I think that's a lot of it, because whether he is or whether he isn't, he's giving evangelicals a platform, and he's giving them a voice that we've always wanted, that I think we lost for a lot of reasons. So I think with a lot of evangelicals, it's not just blind fellowship, but it's the end justifies the means.
The way he stands for the Christian values.
Rita Freeman won't say whether Trump's a Christian, but as one herself, she's quick to forgive.
The first thing that comes to my mind is, if you're without sin, cast the first stone. There is none of us without sin.
According to the Pew Research Center, Tennessee has the highest percentage of evangelicals in the country. Its Senate race in November, likely between Republican Representative Marsha Blackburn and a former Democratic Governor Phil Bredesen, will be one of the most closely watched, and evangelicals are a critical voting bloc. Trump was elected with 80% of the white evangelical vote. Today, his approval with them stands at 63%. Still solid, but cracks are showing. Grace Point Church is a haven for Christians who no longer feel at home in the evangelical movement.
In the mid-90s,
at dinner, they tell us there's an existential crisis.
Whether we call it a paradigm shift or an existential moment or whatever we want to call it, the phrase was used earlier this evening, death rattle. This thing is disappearing in front of us.
We're seeing people say enough is enough. We're not going to stand for tearing people down. We're not going to stand for bullying people.
Dan Scott is a pastor at Nashville's Evangelical Christ Church, a conservative and a harsh critic of the president's who agrees Trump is fueling the breakup of evangelicalism.
What do evangelicals want? Do we want to spread the gospel of Christ, the teachings of Jesus, or do we want power?
The Reverend Graham just passed away. He famously stayed away from politics.
Yes.
Do you think that the core of evangelicals these days have lost their way?
Well, yes, I do. It's a phenomenon mostly of white churches, and it's been a mistake. It's compromised and prostituted our faith, I would argue.
You sound frustrated, disappointed.
I am. I think the church in America is losing its way.
The fact is, no one these days can really say what an evangelical really is. For decades, it has become more and more of a political term rather than a religious one. And this Trump era has driven even deeper wedges among these conservative Christians. So many of them thrilled that their priorities are now at the top of President Trump's list, while many more can't even stomach the idea of supporting him, which could mean the end of evangelicalism as we know it.
In this program, we document many areas in which Trump policies and behavior have deviated from Christian values. These include the advocacy of torture, the intentional separation of families at the southern border, the forced imprisonment of children in concentration-like facilities, the vocal support for police brutality, the obvious indifference to racist activities, the attacks on immigrants, the support of known terrorist surrogates, the continuous abusive slandering of his political opponents, the continuing lies regarding the nation's economy and the deliberate public distortions of the policies and actions of his own administration. Join us today as we discuss these more than critical issues with Rich Procita, a strong advocate of Christian progressivism.